Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. Welcome into the Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, it's Friday, and yes, we're still in the off season.
Yeah, it's still early off season, but
We've got some
still
way
lots
too
to talk
early
about.
rankings, though.
We do, yeah, and a lot of experts are liking the Boilermakers, which is exciting, and as they should. I mean, Purdue certainly has a really they should be looking to win anything they can and get to the national championship stage again and compete to cut down the nets in Indy, which would be really special.
Yeah, and that as we're talking, Purdue has lost Miles Colvin. We didn't talk about that the last time, so we will talk just a little bit about him. Miles Colvin, Cam Heide, both have committed elsewhere, so there's no chance they're coming back. They're already somewhere else. And with that roster, people still have Purdue in many places the top three. But with John Fanta and then Fox Sport Hoops, College Hoops on Fox Sports, they have their way too early rankings, type thing. They have Purdue number 2 behind Houston, and then the Athletic comes out with their rankings. They've got Purdue at the top, and that's with the roster as is.
Yeah, that's the thing is you can expect Purdue's basically guaranteed to pick up at least one more guy, if not two. We're going to talk about some of the prospects that they have potentially reached out to and that have been in the conversation for them to pick up. But yeah, really excited about where this roster is at. Every day that nobody else leaves is a day I get more and more comfortable because it feels like if
T minus
somebody at
11
least
days, Grant.
right, it feels like if somebody um had decided they wanted to go, they would have probably done it by now.
You
But
would think so.
yeah, it's you never know, obviously. And if they get a portal guy, if someone like Kennard Davis, who we'll talk about, if some of those guys come, it might influence a guy like Jakari Harris or CJ Cox to hit the door before that portal window closes, just because that's the one downside to picking up some players when you still have Braden and Fletch is Jakari and CJ will likely see still some limited roles as sophomores, and they'll definitely have to wait their turn. But that's kind of how it works at Purdue. And again, they have a great chance to keep learning from Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and have a chance to win a championship at the same time.
And you talking about the excuse me, the likes of Kennard Davis, if he were to get added to the Boilermakers, there's no guarantee Davis would be the starter. There's no guarantee. Excuse me. With Cam Heide and Miles Colvin, they had the opportunity to get that starting position in that 3 spot this year, and CJ Cox took it from him. He earned it. Well, he didn't take it from him. He earned it. He was the one that came through, and I'm guessing wasn't even really greatly close in the aspect of we didn't see CJ Cox being subbed out of the starting lineup often. He was, I mean, he might have missed a couple of starts, but for the most part he was an all-year starter as a freshman, which says a lot about what he does off the court, on the court, during practice type thing, and really prepping. So I don't know that it would be necessarily limiting Cox or Harris. It just adds more into that competition.
Yeah. And yeah, ultimately, if I were them, and I know I'm a Purdue fan, so I'm a little biased, but if I were them, I would see that more as an opportunity. Like the more guys we have, the better we are, which means we're gonna have a
Right.
shot to win. I get to compete with these guys at practice and get better individually. And then if nothing else, when we lose Fletcher and Braden and probably another portal guy, because I'm assuming at least one of these guys Purdue would bring in probably only has the 1 year of eligibility, then Jakari Harris and CJ Cox are going to be primed to step into those major roles and
Right.
do a great job while they're at it.
And we talked about that on Monday is if they understand that year 2 is going to potentially, excuse me, be one of those that's much like the first season, your freshman year was, to where you're not necessarily getting all the minutes of a starter, but you might be spot starting. You might be getting a few more minutes, but for the most part, you're prepping yourself to get in position to really take over year 3, your junior year, when Smith and Lawyer leave, and they're no longer there. Then I think you're going to have two guys, and I think Smith and Lawyer both benefited from David Jenkins their freshman year, Lance Jones their sophomore year. Having those guys kind of help them grow. Now it's the other way around, to where the starters are sitting there helping the guys in the back or on the bench grow into what they could be once they're expected to be the leaders of the team. I really do think that they know that one more year it'll be our car to drive, but right now we can have some real big fun.
Yeah, and you're talking about Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, who have just seen literally everything from mountaintop to valley low, and they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder to finish the year strong. And again, the Final Four being in Indy, it all kind of feels like it's coming together. You hope there doesn't end up being too much pressure on this team going into next year, just knowing they're going to be a top team with all that expectation. Hopefully it doesn't like cause problems, but I think it's also going to benefit them a lot knowing that this is the year and they have such a good team. Like if one or two guys have an off night, Braden has an off night, that would have killed them this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like Braden could have an off night. Yeah, it did. And now if Braden has an off night
against IU.
Yeah. But you have like Fletcher now, you have TKR still, but you also have Oscar Clough and you have Daniel Jacobson and you have potentially one or two more portal guys, not to mention a much improved Jakari Harris and CJ Cox. Like they can handle some off nights from some guys and still win basketball games against good teams. It bodes well in so many areas, including the NCAA tournament.
So we're talking about some potential adding of pieces to next year's roster. We officially did lose Miles Colvin this last week to he traded in the old gold and black for black and old gold. He's going to Wake Forest. I do believe their official colors are black and old gold, but it's not the same tone of old gold exactly. But for the most part, he's just changing what it says on the uniform. It's still black and gold. But I think this is a good opportunity for Miles. The Deacons struggled a little bit this year in some spots. I think he brings in some very good athleticism to a team in the ACC that it could get him, it could shine some light on what he can do as a starter and as a leader.
Yeah, I mean, Wake Forest struggled a little bit, but at the same time, they were one of the better teams in the ACC. Yeah. They finished 4th or 5th or something, which ACC was very down this year, but they were still in the conversation to make the tournament later in the season. They had some opportunities that they didn't take advantage of, but I think it's a nice spot for them, potentially seeing how the ACC goes. Wake Forest can try and contend, and Colvin will definitely have a nice role on that team. So not a bad decision from him.
Wish him well. Wise decision, young man, for not going to Bloomington.
Yes, that would have been awkward.
It would have been tough to wish ill upon him during 2 games or more of the season, depending on whether if we saw him in the Big Ten tournament. But we ain't got to worry about that now. But we've got some spots open now, and we knew they were open anyways because few hit the portal and come back to the school that they went to or they were coming from. I don't expect either of the other 2 that are in the portal still to change their mind. So we've got these open spots. We've only filled Oscar Clough. So you've got the 4 that have transferred out, plus you have Caleb First. So that's 5 roster spots of a team of 15. If my last count was right, I do believe they're at 12 for next season. That includes Benter, that includes West, and that includes Clough. So like all the. Let's not forget that we also have Raleigh Burgess still on the roster too. He missed a lot of action late in the season last year, but from my understanding, there was maybe some injury in there. Some shin splints, which are extremely painful if you've never had them. But he brings in potential. But I'm looking, I think 3 more roster spots. I've heard some grumblings about Kennard Davis. We mentioned him a little bit. We can talk about him a little bit more in depth. I've also heard Elijah Saunders from Virginia. He's a power 4. is he a small forward or power forward? I think he's like a weird positioning there.
He's often compared to like a Mason Gillis. So I think if he played
Okay.
at Purdue, he would be like a 4, maybe off the bench that would come
Yeah.
in and be
Yeah.
a stretch guy, but
Yeah.
also be able to rebound the ball.
Or if they wanted to go a little bit bigger, they could bring him into the 3 spot, maybe even.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. I don't necessarily think that would be ideal.
I don't either, but you never
depending on
know
the
what
matchup,
kind of
right.
matchup might show itself that you might need to go a little bit bigger. But and then you had a couple of others, or at least one other that we were talking about off there about potential gets for Purdue, or at least some potential of you've heard some grumblings that maybe they've been in contact with one another or something like that.
Yeah, well, Brooks Barnhizer hit the portal from Northwestern, and so there were talks initially of Purdue because Barnhizer's from Lafayette, Indiana, so obviously hometown. He just also kind of seems like a type of kid Purdue would have. He works hard. He is really tough. But I've also heard teams like Michigan, St. John's, Florida are in the mix with him, and it seems like a type of thing where Matt Painter and the way he does things probably wouldn't necessarily like be willing to shell out the cash or just maybe get in that kind of war over Brooks Barnhizer necessarily, especially because as good as Barnhizer was this past season before he got hurt, he didn't shoot the ball very well. And I feel like if you're Purdue with the front court you're going to have, you really want your guys on the perimeter to be able to shoot. And so to me, Barnhizer, it'd be interesting to see what he could do with Purdue, but if he can't shoot the ball very well, it might just not work out well, especially with those other juggernauts in the mix. But yeah.
Let's real quick preface here. As at this point of us doing this show, Barnhizer hasn't hit the portal yet. I do believe he was granted another medical year, but they were expecting him to hit the portal. So he was waiting for his ruling on whether he was even eligible to play, and then maybe he's making that decision. But the thoughts are he is definitely going to hit the portal.
Yeah. So it definitely there's a few guys across the country in this situation. Luke Goody's in this situation where he's trying to get that extra year, get the waiver from the NCAA, but he would hit the portal if he gets it. Still up in the air on whether he'll get it, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, Barnhizer was one of those guys. There's another guy from Israel. He plays in Europe right now. His name is Umar Meyer, I believe is how you pronounce it. Umar Meyer. He is a guard. He is doing really well in professional basketball over in Europe. And Purdue, specifically, I think Sasha Stefanovic has been recruiting some of those guys. And if he were to come to Purdue, he would likely have multiple years of eligibility. He would be a guard that could play with Fletcher Loyer, Braden Smith, and then potentially be the main backcourt player once those two leave. If he were to come to Purdue, I think at this point, he has to choose that or decide that he even wants to go to Purdue or go to college at all, let alone choose Purdue. I think other teams would get in the mix as well. But from what I've heard from like Sleepers Media and some other people, is just they are really high on his ceiling, his ability to be a pro player. And he is so known for shooting. Like he is a shooter. He comes off ball screens and pulls up. He can shoot it from deep. His ability to just knock down perimeter shots would fit in really nicely with Fletch and Braden and with that front court. So he is another guy to keep your radar on. And I think the better shooters you can get is going to really raise the ceiling for this Purdue team because all the doubles and mismatches you're going to see from TKR, Oscar Clough, Jacobson, like getting guards that can knock down shots when they're open consistently just helps this team to be able to knock off teams like Houston in the future and the Dukes of the world. But yeah, those are kind of the main guys that I think right now that Purdue has potentially, shown some interest in. Maybe not even offered anything to or really, really like brought in for visits, things like that. But they're people that Purdue has been interested in, according to other sources.
Obviously, the biggest concern for Matt Painter and his coaching staff was to get another big guy. which is why they so aggressively went after Clough and ended up getting him. Now they're being so tight-lipped. Like there's not a lot coming out, not a ton coming out. I did ask. I saw one. Sam Kaiser posted it on X, and it was about a 20-year-old Serbian guard. I'm going to butcher this first name. Ogden Stankovic, maybe. He is ready to explore college options. And I said, I wonder if there's been contact from Purdue. And the person I was talking to says, yes, there has been. But to the extent of whether or not Stankovic, his interest in Purdue, that's unknown. But at least you can see that they're going after some pieces. Now this kid may be one and done, maybe a couple of years, maybe have more, kind of like who you were talking about, the kid from Israel. They may have multiple years of eligibility, which, hey, I'm all about. If you can pack the roster full of talent, it'll sift its way out to where you'll get the best five, and if the others aren't happy, they can pursue elsewhere to get their minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely with the amount of talent you have. That was one of the concerns with the Israel guy is for one thing, does he fit in well with Fletcher Lawyer specifically, because that would be his spot. The idea is maybe it's not the perfect fit, but if he's good enough, you'll make it work. And I think everybody's opinion is that this guy is good enough that, yeah, maybe he's not the perfect fit for the hole that Purdue has, but he's so good that you'll find a way to make it work. But then you have a guy like Kennard Davis, who I just feel like is a perfect fit for what Purdue needs, where I've looked at his stats. Basically, every stat offensively and even defensively is as good or better than what Lance Jones did before he came to Purdue.
Yeah.
Davis is from Southern Illinois, which is where Lance Jones was from, where Matt Painter used to coach. Like, this seems like the obvious guy that Purdue would bring in because he could play the three. And you just watch some of his highlights. He looks so silky smooth. But they just have so many more options, and I'm glad that Matt Painter is exploring some of those options, because with Purdue and the brand of where they're at right now and the success that they've had, like, they're going to lure top talent and top players. And so you want to go out there and see, okay, at least test the waters of what can we get. And we didn't really see that last year. And as great as I think it is for Purdue to not rely on the portal and to develop their guys, bring in freshmen, I think they need to be careful not to miss the opportunity of what could take place if they went to the portal. I think that's what they're doing. They're not relying on the portal,
Correct.
but they're not missing those opportunities either.
Well, and that you nailed that. Like, it's Jalen Rose wasn't wrong in the aspect of, and I hate saying this, for Matt Painter needing to access the portal more, because that was part of his comment about he's going to have to open up the checkbook and he's going to have to hit that portal every year and get some key guys No, I don't agree that he needs to open up the checkbook to get key guys. He needs to get guys that are going to fit into the short term, and now maybe even look to see if there's some long-term guys that could, okay, these guys are going to fit in 2 years, but we'd like to get them now, before it's impossible. And this guy can get some playing time. I think he's starting to adapt to the situation of the portal being available to him, as you can still use it as a supplement. But hey, if you've got some extra roster spots, why not try?
Yeah, it's also unique too, because Miles Colvin and Cam Heide were both redshirt sophomores.
Yes.
So that means they still had a couple years of scholarship money that Matt Painter was kind of counting on. In the past, I don't think he's had that much flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did they lose 4 guys at the portal, but they have more years of scholarships. And so, yeah, I agree. These past couple years that Painter's brought in transfers, Jenkins, Jones, they've been like 5th-year grad transfers. So they come in for a year, they have lots of experience, but ultimately it's a very temporary thing. They help you while they're there, and then they're gone. now if you can bring in a sophomore or a junior, you can still develop them through Purdue, but they're going to be good right away. It's just new territory for Purdue. It's exciting as a fan.
And I do believe Clough has 2 years of eligibility left.
Yeah, his was a little confusing because I think he
he's
played
got the
his first
year.
Yeah, he's got the JUCO years. So I think he is gonna be a senior, like academically and whatnot.
Right.
But I think you're right. He might have at least 2 more years, if not more, depending on how the JUCO works. Because what
I'm pretty sure he played 1 year in JUCO, and since it was JUCO, it does not count towards his 4 years of eligibility.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I might have heard even he played 2 years or something.
Maybe he
and
did.
Maybe only
I don't
played
remember.
A year
I don't remember that.
Either way, I think you're right in that he has 2 years of eligibility. Because that just that.
So it is it is conceivable that Oscar's there after next year,
right? Yeah,
unless he decides he needs to transfer again.
It's really interesting now because it feels like Purdue is going to lose a ton after this year, and they are. I mean, Braden Fleck,
sure.
PKR will all be gone. They're 3 best players. But you bring back Oscar Clough, you bring back potentially a new transfer. You'll have CJ Cox, Jakari Harris, Daniel Jacobson
Antoine
will presumably
West,
still
Jack
be in the
Benter,
mix.
Luke Ertl, like all these guys, and that's the exciting thing is we've got some good looking recruits coming in too.
Yeah, and the portal just helps you supplement, and now you're looking at a team that not only is loaded next year but loaded in the years to come. And this is how I think you build a program without just being an NBA free agency style program where you're just bringing in all these new, like look at Michigan. They brought in a ton of transfers and had a good season last year, but they're going to have a completely different roster next year. And they're probably going to be pretty tough, but they brought in a completely new roster. Purdue is supplementing with the portal, but they still have the same traditional faces like Smith, Lawyer, PKR.
I think there's a reason why, and bear with me on this for a minute. Excuse me, that Matt Painter's been in the same spot for 25 years, right? Or 20 years, and is, doesn't appear to be going anywhere. And he's consistently, yes, he's earned the moniker of the only coach having lost to a 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, all the way, all these double-digit team seeds. First off, you got to get in that position to play those teams. So that means you've had a very, very productive and good career or good season leading up to that. But the one thing I will always say is, with a few outliers in there, they're always consistent with their roster. You know, they're some rosters are better than others. I get that, but he's still very consistent with winning. Then you look at the likes of Illinois the past few years. 23, they were wildly talented, and they were all over the place. They had so many new players from the portal. Then last year, they struck gold and hit it, and made it to the Elite Eight. This year again, the most talented team in the Big Ten, athletic-wise. Most athletic, not most talented, sorry. I said wrong. But they were all over the place. You didn't know what team you're getting. I think Michigan's going to be could be very much like that, to where when you have that much roster turnover every year, you're going to get years where you should be talented and you are talented, but you just lose when you shouldn't. Purdue hasn't been doing that.
Another one I would throw in there. Look at Kansas. I mean, you're talking about Bill Self. He was 2 years ago was the consensus best coach in the sport, and he still is one of the best coaches in the sport. But he brought in these huge transfer classes, recruiting classes. He was preseason AP number 1, I believe, both the past 2 years. And
at least
they're a 7 seed. Yeah, I think it was even the last 2 ever since they brought Dickinson.
You very well could be right.
And 2 years ago, they were a 4 seed that lost in the second round and almost lost in the first round. Honestly, in my opinion, didn't deserve a 4 seed that year because of their brand and whatnot. I think they maybe got a little help to get up to that 4 line, and obviously didn't do a whole lot with it. And then they come back and are a 7 seed and lose in the first round this year when they have these super talented rosters. But they brought in these transfers like AJ Storr, Hunter Dickinson, They've got freshmen that are solid, but just not quite there yet. And yeah, the definition of inconsistency when Kansas was the most consistent program in the country. Bill Self had never had a Kansas team that wasn't a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament until this year, I believe, or at least pretty much he had some sort of streak with that.
Yeah.
And they were 7 seed this year. Yeah, and so it's just like we're not taboo in the transfer portal, but you have to use it the right way. And Matt Painter is doing that really well. And it's different coaching styles. And again, it worked for Dusty May this season. They went to Sweet 16 and played a tough team in Auburn. And obviously, he had to do that because he took over a new head coaching job, and all those players are basically into the portal anyway. So he had to build a roster.
Right.
But it's not consistent enough, and it's not sustainable enough to really be the go-to, in my opinion. I'm sure people will disagree with that, but in my opinion, it's not consistent or sustainable enough to do it year in and year out.
Kennard Davis will be a junior, by the way.
Okay, yeah, there's another couple years with him. I mean, and I really would like to see him come onto the team just because I think he fits so well. If Purdue gets another guy that's better than him, or even maybe worse than him, but will step in there, great. But I feel like he would be one that if Purdue could get him, it would really help complete their starting 5, or even if he doesn't start,
he's on your wish list.
Yeah, I honestly, I would probably take him over any of the others if Purdue only gets one more transfer. I feel like he just fits that well. If they get 2 or 3, yeah, let's pick up Elijah Sanders. Let's pick up
Saunders.
Saunders, my bad. Elijah Saunders from Virginia, or some of the other guys we mentioned. But if we can only get one, I would go Kennard Davis.
Yeah, and having been trying to find as much information as possible on who the Boilers might be going, they're so tight-lipped. Like, they don't give away anything. Some schools just, but it's like trying. I don't know. It's so hard. But the little things that we were able to find, I saw that I do believe Purdue is in Saunders's last 3. I think he's in their top 3. His top 3 between, I think, a return to Virginia. What was the other one? I forget the other school.
Texas Tech was in there,
but they're not, or they are. Yeah,
I
heard return to Virginia, Texas Tech, and Purdue were the 3 finalists for him. Kennard Davis, I've just heard that there's been some talk to him. Nothing. I haven't seen anything about an official visit or anything, or if that's going to happen. We've still got 11 days until it has to be decided. So I would anticipate within the next week or so, or less, that we'll get some sort of a commitment from some of these players that they're targeting.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting just to see how it all shakes out, because obviously Purdue won't get all these guys, and it's conceivable they get none of these guys if none of these guys decide they want to go to Purdue. But I do think, at least like the case of Davis and the case of even like Saunders, I think if Purdue wants these guys, they're definitely the best option for some of these, like Saunders and Davis.
You
and
almost said Sanders.
I almost did. I don't know why I'm saying Sanders.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm reading it right here too. SAU, but whatever. So yeah, I think Purdue is probably the best option for some of these portal guys, but both parties have to be on the same page, and that's what we're kind of trying to figure out in these moments.
Well, yeah, I mean, those players may be like, yeah, I want to go to Purdue, and Purdue may be like, yeah, we'd like to have you. Then they start talking, and they realize it's not going to fit.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Or maybe Purdue picks up a couple guys before somebody else commits, and now that spot's not there anymore.
There we go. Yep. And like, hey, look, we need a decision because we're going to have these others coming. You don't want to rush them, but at the same time, you just never. I don't think what we did today was speculating. I think we just went over some of the targets that we've heard some information about.
Yeah. And
Uh,
things that maybe we'd like to see, but
and
really have
things
no
that we'd
idea
like
whether
to
it's
see.
going to
Sure,
happen.
for sure. There's nothing wrong with things of that nature, but not speculating like, well, I heard from somebody's cousin. You know, we're not about that. My biggest thing is I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and he said it, and I was like, that's exactly the way. I'm not worried about breaking stuff. I don't want to break news. I want to make sure to get it right. So that's why I don't, get into much speculation. But there are some things that Purdue could use to really bolster up and make me nervously excited about next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, still in the off season. How long? All right, that brings us to the end of the Friday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. Grant, it's been a rough and tumble week. I'm sure there's going to be some more news hitting sometime this weekend, early week next week. Will definitely give us something to chat about when it comes to the Boilermaker Lounge and getting ready for the deep off season, where we're going to start profiling some teams, having some chats with former Boilermakers. I know we're really excited about some of the guys that we've got for that, but really excited about the trajectory of where we're headed, Mister.
Yep. Looking forward to a fun off season of, like you said, all those different things, and getting into the summer, and looking forward already to that November time when we'll start up a new season.
I'm ready for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a tradition that we win the NTEs now.
That's right. You're absolutely right. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on this Friday edition of Boilermaker Lounge. For Grant Flora, I am Sam Sprunger. We'll see you on Monday.